How many people go through life, their whole life, with a chip on their shoulder being like, it was conditional? Until we really feel how much that little boy or girl was carrying, to being like, oh, wow, like they just didn't have any place to talk about it.
It's not easy. There's a lot of resistance and barriers inside there.
This is why I'm such a fan of retreats. Like sometimes we have to get out of our environment to change because we're so patterned.
I do have that calling to be a father. Saying that first person that you've been working on, yeah, I can feel that.
We have so much negativity around how men aren't showing up in the world, and we need more representations of the men who are excited to be that role. I know a lot of incredible men, incredible fathers, and I really believe and know you will be one.
Unsung heroes, man. Just day in, day out, being there for the families the best they can.
Aloha, and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast.
Before we begin the next episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to ask for your support in helping us grow our podcast.
Take a moment to like, subscribe, or follow on whatever platform you're watching this on.
Your engagement helps us to grow our platform as well as allows us to invite even more interesting interviews in the future. I hope you enjoy the following episode and wish that you gain insight, clarity, or knowledge about what it means for you to embrace being human. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I am here with a very special human who I actually had the pleasure of living with for a little while. I've known for quite some time, at least 10 years. And he has recently come to Maui for an introspective retreat with me, some one-on-one work, and we thought it'd be really cool to kind of digest some of the experiences he had, meeting the island, going internal and into his internal world, and anything else. It's kind of explorative, but without further ado, Nick Longbucko, welcome to the podcast.
Scott Stone, great to be here on the podcast here in Maui on my last day.
Mm-hmm.
And shortly I'll be heading back to Michigan.
So you've been here now 8 days, your first time to Hawaii and meeting this energy of the land. Tell me a little bit what it was like, how you came to the island.
Yeah, because, originally I was going to go to Colombia at the Purpose retreat with you, and that kind of fell through, and you're like, well, we could do similar stuff here in Hawaii, and let's do it. So, eventually committed to that, and I'd say since about the new year, I've been realizing my old way of living and patterns just wasn't how I wanted to live my life, and I was stuck in a place I didn't want to be. So, I've been slowly doing more breath work and just taking more time for myself to notice what I'm thinking and feeling, and, doing this really, it was like, all right, I'm going with Scott. I really want to try to make the best of it or get the most out of it. So I was, really committed to ramping up that, I guess, and just getting in, trying to figure out what I did want to get from this, what I'd be looking at internally, what issues may be coming up. And that was kind of my mindset coming in. And it was, I was like, it's going to be a retreat, but I'll be with my buddy, my pal, Scott Stone, so we'll get into some fun stuff too. And how that balances out, I didn't know, but it ended up being a really great balance for me. I don't know what you expected. I perhaps expected more like the retreat being more intense, and then the rest of it would be more fun and play, but it was a good balance. In the morning, maybe breath work and talking, and then go out and check something cool, check in, and I really enjoyed that flow. It gave space for, I feel like, intense introspection, get into the body, get into what you're feeling deep, and then some fun play, some levity, just being out. This place is so beautiful, and there's such an energy around it. It's remarkable.
So a little backstory. So Nick came with me on another retreat I led in 2022 in the boundary waters of Ely, Minnesota. And Ely, Minnesota and the boundary waters is considered one of the quietest places on earth. So we were doing a retreat through a company called Recal, started by a buddy of mine, Anthony LaRubio, who I look forward to having on the podcast as well. And that company hired me to do retreats in both Glacier National Park and in the Boundary Waters. And Nick was the only one that signed up for the Boundary Waters, which to his benefit, we still got to do the retreat. We still had a guide. We went canoe packing through the Boundary Waters, which is a 1,000-lake system of Finger Lakes through northern Minnesota. And we got to to camp in this place that was incredible, like mind-boggling, and I got paid to do it, which is a whole other just mind-boggling thing. But so we've done this before, and Nick was going to come to one of my retreats in Colombia, and it ended up just working for him to come here instead. And so what ensued was so beautiful. But one of the things I just really want to acknowledge you for, Nick, was that when we started the discussion, shortly after, you were like, I'm looking up books and information. Like, I really want to learn more about the land and what it has to offer. And I really have always appreciated your desire to not half-ass anything. And this may not even be something that you've ever been acknowledged for, but like the level of care and attention you give to something you're doing as a product of your desire to have an enjoyable experience, I think is a self-love practice that you maybe haven't even noticed.
I appreciate that, and that hits. And I think you're right. I think I've noticed periphery, but I don't think I've ever, the way you explained it, felt it like that before.
Yeah.
Because I always had a passion for like organizing other trips I do with friends, and that really fills my cup. And planning the logistics and researching maps, all that kind of stuff. And this was an extension of that, but like deeper. Like, all right, I want to connect the land. We're going to be staying at the Hawaiian Land Trust, who's kind enough to let us camp on their grounds. You volunteered, and then I followed up with my volunteering, which I thought was a great way to get introduced to Maui. So shout out to them. But yeah, that's really beautiful. I appreciate that, and something I will try to call to my attention more. Try to feel and observe that.
Whether it's your Piscean nature or just the man that you are, like your willingness or ability to even let that land. Because I watched it, you're like, whoop, like, oh boy, that's something there. Just looking back on the last 8 days we've had, you said it on the way to when we got your souvenirs and stuff, like probably cried every day. And the willingness of this land to hold you in that, and your tears, and I'm really glad you shouted out HILT, the Hawaii Island Land Trust.
Yeah, and that land and all the different parts of Maui for holding me, but like you're a big part of that. Like, I've been to a couple of your ice bath workshops, obviously Ely, Minnesota, Boundary Waters, and just slowly seeing you go from P&G engineer to this has been, really transformative. And I know we've established a lot of groundwork and history, so it's between this land and you, it's real easy for me to do that. Easy as it gets to go that deep. Like, easy to try, but sometimes you get in and it's still challenging, but the willingness is easy.
Yeah, thank you for that, Nick. And then I really appreciated just when you said P&G engineer. I don't know if I've talked really about this on the podcast, but like going from like corporate slayer, running a $300 million business, to doing what I do now is like so different, but I feel so deeply aligned, so called, so held in what I do and holding space for other people. And we've gotten to see a lot. You saw me right after I called off my wedding, and you moved in and lived with me in Iowa for a bit, and then I've gotten to see you over the years, and your dad passing, which I'm sure we'll get into in the topic of grief. And yeah, it's a really special relationship. I hold it really dear, and it's not random when I made that recent social media post about 1 in 5 men say they have no close friends, and I'm really blessed to not be in that statistic because of close relationships I have with men like you. And so I really appreciate this relationship and the feeling like I've never had to be a type of way to be in it. Like, it's not conditional, which I feel like is a really helpful thing for me to experience in life.
Yeah. That's something Dad passed away. His birthday's one day after mine. We were here in my birthday. So he's been in my thoughts quite a bit, and just going through some childhood stuff. One of the things we touched upon, I don't remember when it came up, just like, whether it was working with him. I think a lot of people go through this, just like trying to, when they're working when they're young with their dad, trying to make them happy or do it right. And, sometimes if he would snap or, be stressed out or annoyed, whatever he was dealing with, the young me was interpreting that as like, oh no, this love is conditional. Like, I'm not secure in it. And like, I kind of recognize that. It's like, no, that's not, I know that's not what he meant. Like, in my heart, Like his love was unconditional for me, but I always didn't feel that, and the young me, little boy me, didn't couldn't process that. So that's something I kind of was like, oh, there's a part of me that felt that, and it was good to just give that some awareness.
I noticed as you were sharing that some things were starting to come up. Would you be willing to kind of let us into that world just to see through an example of what it's really like to be, whether it's a man or a son or just a person healing?
If they're kind of being in this space on the periphery and seeing how breath work and awareness helps, I think this is the first time I've gotten how really paying attention to what's going on inside and what that emotion feels like, and doing it regularly. Like maybe I do that every once in a while after a breathwork session, or I notice something after a cold plunge. But just realizing, you don't have to do those modalities to tap into it, and just to recognize that spot, and just realizing just a lot, how stuff in your past, you just hold on to it. And I just didn't realize how much I was, whether it was stuff with my dad, other things with my family, general narratives that we have about ourselves about inadequacy or not having enough, or any of those emotions or narratives. But to hold those, it's funny. Maui gives us space, you give me space, then I give myself space to hold them. And then it's really been we did, a lot of IFS, internal family system stuff. And maybe, and I don't know if it helps because you're kind of detaching yourself a little bit so you can observe, that first day here in the car. We just got into it the second day. It's all right, buckle up, kids. I guess we're getting into this. Talking about my dad, and just he was trying to help me catch up on. Went to a new school, private school. They were way ahead, so we were trying to hit the books a little bit and catch up on my math, and just the frustration I felt when he was mad at me because I wasn't paying attention or whatever it was, and just tapped on the head or something like that for not paying attention. Nothing major, but just didn't realize how much that impacted me. And I was trying to identify that little boy, and it kind of was. And you said have him turn around and look him in the eye, and damn, that hit I just have really brown eyes now. They're not, but that brown-eyed boy was staring back at me, and yeah, that even in the car when it, not the most comfortable place, still was crying. So it's amazing those little. Someone like you have these little, I don't want to call them tricks, but shifts of perception that can really hit just differently. And I've started to learn to maybe play with those myself a little bit by just giving space. And it's wow, how have I gone 30 some years of, adult existence, 25 years without knowing that skill or knowing that's there.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful. And it touched me when you said it, because it when you share so authentically and vulnerably, it hits when we all do it. And it hit me when you shared. You said, of course my dad's love was unconditional. He just didn't know how to show it that way, or I didn't know how to receive it that way. And, how many people go through life, their whole life, with a chip on their shoulder being it was conditional, until we really feel how much that little boy or girl was carrying, to being oh, wow, they just didn't have any place to talk about it. If the cards had been dealt differently and you were able to, as a sovereign human, being hey, Dad, when you did that, it really hurt my feelings, and I got scared, and I for a moment didn't want to trust you, and I just, it would break your dad's heart to hear that. And I witness it with my dad sometimes, where I'm I don't think you give a shit about me, bro. You make fun of me. You make fun of me. That's so fucked up. But I did that once. I told him, I was your jokes hurt. And he was oh my God. He's I'm so sorry, dude. He's I thought that was the way we connected, was humor. I don't do that with your brother. It's just you. I don't do it with your mom. It's just you. And I was damn. This dude's trying to think. His experience is I get to bust my kid's chops and it gets us closer. Meanwhile, because I don't connect with him and how it feels sometimes, I actually get further away.
Yeah, as not a dad, but I can see how that would, for your dad, oh man.
Right. We don't get this as a kid, we are sensitive, but we're not taught to be sensitive, and so as an adult, having these tools and the support, something hits you.
Until recently, I guess I've just come around oh, my therapist, I might be a highly sensitive person. some external stimuli can trigger me. And I never really thought about that. It's like, oh, maybe that's right though. And like never been taught skills to handle that. And, you know, so like the whole like toughen up, go to your room till you feel better things, like that did not work for me.
They don't work, period.
Yeah.
And it's tough because we've lived in a society that like glorifies in a way of like tough it out and, you know, figure it out by yourself and be resilient and all that stuff. I'm like, that is so not how we were built. Like so far from the tribal communal culture that we came from for millions of years. And then the last 200 have been like, you know what? Let's put each other in boxes and not talk. You know, it's like, this is weird. And people are struggling now because of it, you know, and I really believe, you know, what we did over the last week or just, you know, what we've had as an opportunity to dig in deeper, you know, and feel more and express more and stop carrying so much, you know, like it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it's like toughen up. No. When really it could be like, have you ever looked inside? You can get tough that way. Like, you ever try to hold yourself, like look at your worst fears? Like, I don't know, that's pretty tough, man. Like,
Right.
This is a different kind. Like,
Right.
step back and think about that for a minute. Like, maybe long, you know, short term.
Right.
But yeah, long term, that's like a harder. I guess maybe once you get the skills, it's a little easier. But
Right.
first get into it, it's not easy. There's a lot of resistance and barriers inside there.
Uncharted territory.
Oh, man.
This ego is well designed. You know, there's chutes and ladders and trapdoors and hall of mirrors and like, but it's really cool to see what happens. This is why I'm such a fan of retreats. Like sometimes we have to get out of our environment to change because we're so patterned, you know, and it takes like, I'm going to go sit somewhere else for a little bit and notice who I am outside of all that. And it's, I just love that this worked out the way it did and you're able to come to Hawaii and like, you know, and you dug in. You went deep on so many occasions, you know, both during the retreat and before and after, you know, it's like, it's really cool. Let's do a little peek and pit about the trip. Things that stand out, highs and lows.
Okay.
If you want, I can go first to give you some time.
Yeah.
One of my peaks, I would say, would be, I was going to say the drum circle. For a number of reasons. One, it was your dad's birthday, and I watched that hit you. I got to watch you dance. I got to watch you drum. Amber showed up with the girls. I got to watch you two interact. And I also, and this is the thing, this is the reason I said it, because it was like special, is I got to see this part of Nick that like wants a family. You know, that like that means something to him. And so it was cute because, you know, I have a partner with children right now. So like I got to see that impact. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, that was a great experience. It was, yeah, my birthday, my dad's birthday the next day. He was a drummer. And so you're like drum circle on the beach. Heck yeah. Like he would have loved it. He would have been so geeked out. So it was awesome that you brought out your drum and I could participate in that. And then, yeah, Amber was great. Her kids are great, especially Joy. She seems to open up real well to strangers. So I didn't think of, you know, I didn't consciously think about that, but like I was always into like, all right, let's play with the kids in the ocean. Like I was down for that always. Like I love playing with kids. So like I do have that calling to be a father. And just saying, like saying that first person, which you've been working on. Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah.
So that's definitely one of my peaks. I think the other one was, it's funny, a lot of my peaks have like a pit that comes before it. Because like coming to that beach, it was amazing. The sunset is also like my first, it was my second full day, I think. So it's like the Hawaiian experience, like if you're not used to it, a little overwhelming, just like, you know, all these beautiful bronze bodies dancing around, the sunset, volleyball, drum circle. I get in the water, come back, I look to my out of the corner of my eye, I'm like, oh, those are some cool tortoise statues. I'm like, check that. Those are real tortoises, real breathing reptiles. It's like I just had to like turn around and just like take that in. And then, you know, it was like just a lot going on. Then, you know, once I got dancing and in the drum circle and got to play with the kids, they're kind of just like, what are you hung up about? Just enjoy the moment. Like, get out of your head, man. Like, just play. So it's like, it's funny. A lot of my micro peak and pits kind of match together. The other one I really want to talk about was at the ecstatic dance, which was again another kind of over a little bit overstimulus environment.
Yeah.
Didn't know what to expect. You know, sometimes was in it, sometimes was not, depending on how the music was going. And then I just got in the water playing with the kids is where it all started. You were in there with Amber and her 3 daughters. And there was this lady next to me just kind of riding the waves. And I kind of joined her. And then eventually we just like touched hands. And then we started doing this like water dance. And then she was a trained water therapist. What was it called again? Watsu. And we just started doing that. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was just like kind of following her lead and also leading, but she was like, you know, she must have felt comfortable and she was trained. And it was, then she did it to me where I would let go and just, she'd spin me in the water and just was like, you know, on land, I was a little like, man, I can't quite, I'm holding something back or something's not right. But then in that water, I was like, let go completely. Like this person was holding me in this water, putting me underwater, spinning me around, but she knew when to let me up. And through our, you know, through training and breath work, like I can hold my breath for over a minute, like not a problem. And it was just like such a, like, oh, you're afraid to let go? This person will show you. Like Maui's just literally throwing like healers at me.
Yep.
Like whether it's spiritual or like other human beings. It's like, wow, never been like that. It's a unique experience, very singular.
Yeah, ecstatic dance, man. I was really hoping for Forest, but Beach showed up hardcore that day. Like there was probably, 50, 60 people dancing, and then just, there's so much stimulus, bodies and then naked bodies. And then it's just like, whoa, this is a lot. Like even for me, bro, like and I too sat down, just play with the kids, sometimes I go to dance just to do that, just to like have community and to see what people are up to and feel like, oh yeah, like I'm allowed to be me. Like that's great.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many just special moments in those moments, right? Like even like you laying down, Amber come up and be like, hey, how you doing? And just checking in on you, and then you relocate and come over and hang with us, like just these little things of like, you're included.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see you like just floating in the water with that woman, I was just like, back to the funniness of the kids. I was like, I couldn't see what was going on. So I was like, get it, Nick. Like this guy's just dancing with this woman in the water now. And Joy looks up and goes, yeah, get it, Nick.
Ultimate cheerleader.
And then we sit there for a little bit and you start coming in and Joy looks at me and she goes, I'm just going to sit here and watch Nick get it. And I was like, oh my God. Like
Joy said that? Or
yeah, Joy did. And then you guys were coming up and I was like, don't say he was getting it. Like, this is not the time now. She's like, what? And I was like, don't. But no, I wanted to go back and say something. This I think was really impactful and important to hear in the world, which is your desire. I wish there were more men who got airtime about their desire to be a dad.
Mm.
We have so much negativity around how men aren't showing up in the world. And we need more representations of the men who are excited to be that role. Because you stick out, my buddy Brandon sticks out, Leo sticks out. Like, I know a lot of incredible men, incredible fathers, and I really believe and know you will be one.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And yeah, shout out to all, just unsung heroes, man. Just day in, day out, being there for the families the best they can. And until I'm a father, I feel like going to your men's group, the men's group here, your experience with the men's group, Ty's experience with, his men's group. Like I'm feeling called to join that. And then if I can be a leader in that and bring this to the brothers in my life who are fathers, but I know they're struggling at times just with the burden of or responsibility.
Yeah.
Like it's a responsibility they love, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have its challenges. And I think that's I'm going to hold me to that a little bit.
I will. I want you to talk to Leo about that before you leave.
Okay.
Because Leo is part of this movement he's running called the Fatherhood Alliance of Maui. It's helping men who are either in that or want to be in that position feel supported. I think there's really a need for that right now, especially with men. Men are struggling. And I think we have a beautiful opportunity here to help people feel supported. And I love that you're feeling that call even more. It's such a fulfilling opportunity, in my opinion, getting to support men, getting to support fathers, getting to support humans. Okay, so that was peak. Pit.
Yeah, I think mine was yesterday.
Tell me more.
And not EO.
Yeah.
Taking the mushrooms, sitting on that rock, and then going in, putting the blindfold on, and just observing some emotions. And it got dark. It went down to this, like, what I describe it as, like the Leviathan, like the belly of a whale, of the beast, just like dark and stank and stale, and some, just a dark, deep place that was suffocating. Like I felt like I was snorkeling. Like I had to like breathe purposely just to stay down there. I felt, or else I'd probably like panic and come out of it. And it was just like stuck, stale emotions. I'm like, oh, this is in my. I don't know if it's in my soul. It's covering, critical parts of me, and it's like in there. It's like, man, that is harsh. And like whoever's down here, like whoever parts of me are down there and have to deal with that, which is, me. It's like I really felt for that person, and it was just like a depth of despair and almost hell I never experienced before. So that was definitely pit. I mean, it came out of it all right. I'm glad I went through that. I brought something up to the surface with me, on that rock next to the roaring rapids, and that kind of brought me out a little bit. And I just hold whoever I had with me and just try to, like, man, it's like, what, it'll be all right. Like, that was a bad place. Like, that place is still there. I know it's there now at least, and, we'll try to work on that or manage it or whatever, whatever assurances I could give, and just, like, held myself. Crying like a baby, getting your towel all sorts of snotty.
Perfect.
Just trying to purge that stale water out, man.
Yes. So good you did that. Yeah, that's a tough one. The loneliness, right? Like that's a tough place for so many people, most people, especially now. I think something like the statistic is something like loneliness kills more people than smoking. Like the deaths of despair, and to witness you in that and after that, right? Like it is hard to go through that, but wow, what strength and what resilience and fortitude and love and compassion that we cultivate for ourselves when we learn how to hold ourselves to those moments that we were not held in. That's the trauma, right? Is it's not always what happens to you, it's what happens in your body and or what happens alone. And so this like ick feeling that just got buried for decades. To now have a man who's like, I can hold the door for you. And that's you for you. That was, me for whatever. Like, yeah, I will meet you in that pit of hell. And mine that sticks out was today in therapy. And to bring up the journey that I had yesterday, and one of those experiences that I have not talked about on this podcast yet, but I guess we're going to start here today, is when I was 14, I was sexually abused by what I thought was one of my friends. And if he would have had his way, he probably would have raped me. And to feel so unsafe in my family that I couldn't take that to my parents afterwards is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with, because I didn't have any tools. I was young. I don't even know if I was 14. I was in that age range. I was like 6th, 7th grade. And yeah, to just stuff it down into a corner of my body and hope to never feel it again. Meanwhile, every day running from that feeling that was just waiting to be felt. And I tapped into that yesterday and today. And it is one of the ickiest feelings I can even begin to describe in my body. But horrible. Yeah, to just sit there with that little boy in that chair today with my therapist and just cry and just want to throw up and just all the ick. And I get why people don't heal. It's not that they don't want to, it's that it's fucking scary and it's really hard and it hurts sometimes. And sometimes our families don't get it or want to be part of it or negate it or invalidate it. Like, that can be devastating. And I think that's why I do, one of the reasons I do what I do is because I know nobody wants to feel like this if they had a choice. And yeah, that was really rough earlier today. And I feel like my body knew it because she asked me if I wanted to do EMDR during the session, and I was like, no, I was like, I don't even know what we're going to get into, but I can tell you right now, I don't want to. Maybe we'll get to it later if I can like build rapport with these protectors. But right now, I don't touch this with 10-foot pole.
Don't know too much about EMDR. Is that because it like gets you in your body and like you just didn't want to be in that space?
So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprogramming or repatterning. And so it's a butterfly tapping effect that what it does is it connects both sides of your brain together. Because in trauma, things get separated and stored and parts get shut off and blood flow gets rerouted and whatnot. Respiratory patterns change. And so when this happens and the tapping is going on, you can also do it by watching a moving light source. You just start moving your eyes back and forth, and all of a sudden it's like, boom, trauma's there. And so but it also integrates it. It also like repatterns it in new neural pathways and such. But it can be extremely triggering. But yes, it is a like what you could call somatic based practice for trauma reconciliation. It's very intense. And yeah, it's not something I practice with my clients because it's a therapeutic. It's you have to be trained in this. But yeah, bringing up trauma can be devastating, and it doesn't have to be a rape or a murder or any of that. It can be
Long festering wounds of family division.
literally
Just off the top of my head.
right. Like
That's just how I don't know why that came to me.
It's
Don't worry about
just
it.
an example. But yeah, things like that, right? Like unhealed wounds from childhood that we just stuff in the corner of our body and wonder why it has psoriasis or eczema or cancer. Like these things for the most part are emotionally led, and that's a tough thing for a lot of people in society to get on board. But you said it last night. You're like, thank God I'm dealing with this stuff, or this would turn into some horrific version of cancer. Which is most people's fears. And yeah, man, as another man on this healing path, like it's good to know I'm not alone.
That is good to know. Yeah. And following you and just started listening to your podcast, and I know there's other people out there. And just going back to our Boundary Waters with Scott and Scott. Scott was you, and then we had our outfitter guide who would boat us around, set up camp, and all that. And like he got into it, like he didn't know. He was like, "Oh, this stuff's interesting." Like he participated in some of that stuff.
Yes,
and he I think he really appreciated that. So like, it's just funny, like bump into it and people are receptive and like they light up, and it sounds like you're experiencing that. Just people coming back to you, like there's like some polarity that like I think pulls people into this when they finally see it in themselves and see it in you. And I think you got that in you, like something's happening there.
I appreciate that. The quote I've heard is, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And it's an interesting path that I've chosen to walk. And one of the other quotes it reminds me of is something like, the teacher teaches you how to heal, the master will heal you, and the mystic will show you there's nothing wrong. Right. So much of it is perspective, and in the perspective shift of like, wow, I'm not broken. I'm not wrong. I'm not bad. Oh, fuck. God, I've spent years trying to, and that's a tough thing. But I think it's the truth is we're all healing ourselves. The only difference in what I feel like I bring to the table is a calmer nervous system. And in that space, which is what we wanted as children, we wanted co-regulation from our parents' nervous systems. When we had our big feelings, we wanted them to help us calm down. But like I was talking to you last night about why my dog is triggering me sometimes, is I'm giving her what I didn't get. I'm helping her move her big energy instead of using my bigger energy to stop her big energy, which is, triggering to me because I'm like, I didn't get that. But what's more triggering is like sometimes I still don't give myself that. I have big energy and I'm like, figure it the fuck out. Like this is not allowed. And it's like, whoa, that sounds like dictatorship, bro. It's tyranny.
What was your quote about tyranny?
It's, if you don't learn compassion, you will never learn self-mastery, but rather only self-tyranny.
How many people are their own tyrants right now? Like, that's it.
Yes.
Chronic sociopathic behavior. I think it's just running rampant.
Yeah.
Kind of wanted to ask you,
Mm-hmm.
so, we talked about in the mushroom trip, feeling that, one thing, get the ick out of Nick.
Icky Nicky.
You called that, and I called that too. I was like, oh man, yeah, and I kind of laughed at that. It's like, all right, gotta get this ick out of Nick.
Yeah.
Like that's gotta be the thing we gotta work on. And you mentioned like at that feeling, feeling sick. Like I thought I was gonna purge.
Yep.
Like I was ready to. Like I climbed down off that rock, found a little area. I'm like, okay, if it's gonna happen, let's let it go. And
Right.
nothing happened. But like during that, I was like, I wonder if I'm called to ayahuasca now. Like I don't know. It felt like something there. And I know that won't, get it out, but I'm trying to like, all right,
Sure.
how do I purge, cleanse, purify? Maybe it's more purifying.
I will refer back to what happened in front of the Heiau on Sunday night. We went out there, so a little backstory. So Nick and I camped on the land Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And on Sunday night, the last night of technically into Monday was the retreat, but the last night of camping, we hiked out onto the land into as close as we could respectfully get to this sacred site. We did some breath work outside of that was the plan, was to do some breath work. And as we sat down, just to check in with Nick, I was asking him kind of what was coming up and, what was there for him. And Sunday was also ecstatic dance. So these feelings were coming up. And, I asked you, I was like, so what's your intention? You were like, well, I kind of like, I was like, how deep do you want to go? And you were like, I kind of want to go pretty deep. Like, if I could release this or like whatever. And I was like, well, let's talk about it before we do that. Because what I was attempting to show you, and this is a big thing for me, is the self-led energy has no compulsion. So as soon as you said that you wanted to have an outcome, like you wanted to have a release, I was like, oh, so a part's leading right now. And so I want to get connected to that part to understand their motivation. Otherwise, we're just playing a bullying game. And we're seeing how big this part can get versus the part that doesn't want to let go. And so as we started to inquire, one of the emotions that came up was anger, right? And so giving you a space to be angry, just to express your anger, which you did beautifully, right? You through your mind's eye, you lit the pile of rocks on fire and you gave your anger to the fire. And you did it with a loud voice and a lot of emotion and a lot of conviction and a lot of emphasis. Like you embodied what you wish you could say in certain areas of your life. And in that had the emotional release that you were hoping you would get from breath work. And a big part of my belief in the journey that I've been on, because I found breath work and I found the ice baths and I found contrast therapy and I found psychedelic medicine, all this stuff of like, I'm going to force my transformation. And I got really good at bullying. I got really good at forcing like hostile takeovers, but I never knew how to integrate because I was like, oh, I have to become a bigger bully than the bully that I don't like. And so, when it comes to like, okay, should I do ayahuasca? Like, sure, if that's what really calls to you, one, I would really sit with it for a while before you even explore that. As Greg said, you got to ask me at least twice. But more so,
Previous podcast.
Right. And my belief is like, I believe that, the vast majority of this stuff for the common man, we can do through some parts work and self-introspection and, exquisite listening and beautiful mirroring and that type of stuff. Because I've seen some people do yahe and not come back the same people, and then not in a good way. Like, and now granted, they had really sloppy integration and like, they just didn't take it seriously, in my opinion. Like, I wouldn't do that, what they did. But who am I to say what their journey is supposed to be? So, yeah, I think kind of to circle back to your question about like, how do you know, or what are the tools? I think the first thing I clue into is intuition, what feels right. The second one is intention, right? So like, why am I doing it? The last one I would say would be synchronicity, of like, see what keeps coming in your field. Right now, it appears that IFS and parts work is like kind of circling around you. Now, if you started getting a call to go to the jungle more, or like, like more plant medicine, like, okay, maybe that's a thing to lean into and have a conversation or three about it. I think the most important thing to remember is two things with plant medicine. One is it will never do the work for you. It will only show you what work there is to do. And the second one is the journey begins when the journey ends. And so integration is absolutely paramount. Otherwise, you're just hoping that life is going to fix itself. And I just don't think that's a solid strategy.
I appreciate that. Very measured and thoughtful feedback is like, a lot of the psychedelics are like, nope, do this. Like, kind of getting trendy and
Totally.
yeah. So I think it's good to put that back out there. It's like, only it's a, I don't know if it's a tool, but yeah, only shows what's
Right.
the work to do inside of you.
Right.
And yeah, just the build up this boy to fight this boy, dog chasing its tail, man. That's a cycle of some kind.
Right. Yeah, and most people are oblivious to it. You know, the quote is like, I can no longer control the monster I created in my childhood to keep me safe. That's the quote. And that's, most people, right? Like they're addicted to some level of short-term relief because they don't have a path to long-term relief. They don't know what it actually looks like to feel good anymore. They just don't want to feel bad.
Starting to notice something or delve deep. There's a like a laugh cry emotion that's like beautiful part of me that can like sees the light through the tunnel, or like, oh, it's really nice to bring light into whatever I'm feeling. But then it's like also this pain of like, I can't believe I haven't done this more. Like this is maybe what it feels like to be more integrated, maybe
Embodied.
Yeah, like it's and then it's like almost painful. It's like, oh man, like how much time are we not spending at this place? And it's like a laugh cry thing. I mean, it's overall beautiful, but yeah, I've noticed I'll ride that wave a little bit.
In that introspection, reflection, right? Like you can see the 21-year-old or the 31-year-old that was like, damn, I wish he had these tools. But here's the beautiful part of it is at 41, you can also see the 60 and 80-year-old version of you that says, thank God you found them.
Everywhere all at once, eh?
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Yeah, and that's the thing is you doing this work right now, that little boy sitting at that table trying to get that math question right, he got flicked in his head and he looked at his dad and he's like, hey, dude, that hurt. And your dad was like, I'm sorry. I was just trying to get you to focus. And then it stopped. Then it was repaired, right? Like versus trying to figure out like what just happened and why that happened. Like you felt that and you changed the fabric of your experience. I truly believe that in the quantum field. Like, like I'm going back and I'm stopping that abuse, that bullying, that all that stuff, that torment, and being like, nobody, I got you, I'm the time traveler, and like
right in that fourth dimension, I guess.
So we talked a bit about, is there other things that you want to share from the retreat, or, things you want to be witnessed in, or think that were really profound that someone else might find valuable?
Kind of building off what you said, like, you wish the 20 or 30-some-year-old had these skills, but the 60, 80-year-old will really appreciate you gain that. And it's just like, just give your permission to do something like this. Like, just, make the small or whatever financial time commitment and just like, give that gift to yourself. Like, what other work is there to do? Really. Like just a bus ask for a job. Like, what's the point of financial resources if you can't do something like this or a version like this? Like, it doesn't have to be Maui. Like, it can be something else. Give yourself the grace to take the time, whatever commitment you need to start this. And, I think it'll always be worth it.
Yeah, when you started to share that, though, I thought you were going to say it's like, give the gift that keeps on giving. Like, right? Like, when you take the time to heal, when you take the time to feel, it propagates into your life where you drink one less beer. You have one less hangover. You have one less breakup. You have one, like that ripple effect of like, wow, I chose myself. What if I chose myself here? What if I chose a job that I love? Like, what if I chose a relationship that I love? What if I gave myself permission to talk to that girl, like in one regard, courageous, but the other regard, it's like exciting, to be like, wow, what if I got to live? Not just be alive, and that's, I think, it just reminds me of us climbing eucalyptus trees, in the bamboo forest of just like, yeah, we're going to climb this tree, at least to some extent, we're not going to like damage it or anything like that. But we're going to like sit and let this tree hold us. And the same thing yesterday, frolicking around Eow and, jumping from tree to tree and rock to rock and being like, wow, this kid's still in here, to like see that little boy version of us that gets to get lit up about life. And then we're like, yeah, buddy, get excited. It's really profound work. I was asking Leo, I was curious what he would say. And I asked him, like, what questions would you ask Nick about his experience? And One of the ones he asked is, what was your most impactful experience and what was your most unexpected experience?
I think unexpected experience would have been the water after or during ecstatic dance, the water therapy, the water dance. Just giving it like a complete stranger, just enjoying that moment. Sometimes I get approach anxiety, especially with women, just going up and try to express myself. And the universe, like, it'll be fine. Like, here's this beautiful soul that will help you. And so, like, I was just like, after that, I was like, oh man, I didn't see that coming. Like, I guess I just go back to my intention that I set once I got here about like feel, observe, listen. So just like all those accumulated experiences, like, all right, what am I feeling? Can I observe what I'm feeling? Can I listen to parts of me in my body that are reacting to that? I have to really consciously do that. But if I can get that on autopilot or some sort of program that runs on itself, like, boom, game changer. I can see that being just exponentially impactful. So it's not one experience, but it's like accumulation of everything we went through, like just solidified that in my mind. Like I was just like meditating on my favorite little stoop in the morning as I was doing, because I get up so early with the time change. It's just like, oh man, I bet great thinkers, like truly impactful philosophers, scientists are like, I bet they were great feelers. Like they weren't just thinking of stuff, they felt it in their core. And like, I've never thought about that. Like I thought about musicians and artists, but like, that's like anyone that's probably like at the top of their game, whatever it would be, are like feeling it, in that flow state, in that intuition state. I was like, oh man, that's how to be. And now I see like the formula to do that and just like practice that.
Yeah. Ah, man, what a good point. And just like take home, feel, observe, listen. We are sentient beings, human beings, being human, right? What does that mean? Sentient, we feel. Okay, great. Now what? We're the witness. We're not the human, right? If I cut your arm off, you're still Nick. And before you were Nick, you were still you. Like that didn't happen. You didn't change because you got named. You were that before you were, when you were life created, you were the thing still. And so this witness that does the observing, and then the seat of self as the listener, that you are a nonpartisan observer of what is coming through, right? You are witnessing life happening. And a lot of people, they're like, whoa, bro, I create this. I'm like, okay, tell me what you're going to think about next.
One hand clapping.
Right. Like they're just like, wait a second. Like, well, this avocado and like, then what? Like guacamole, then what? 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 Like you see, it's not you. And it's some people are like, they'll fight you for it. And it's like, okay. But the better that we can be at this non-attachment, not unattachment, non-attachment, just letting it happen and witnessing what's happening. Life is incredible. Life will present you with an opportunity to come to Maui. Life will present you with crazy things if you see it happening for you. And I love that really landed for you in this trip. Like that's beautiful medicine. What would you say to other men that either are on this path? Let's say they want to be on this path. What would you share, not from the place of advice, but from the place of experience?
I guess if they're kind of where I was or am and kind of on this path, examine the resistance. That's something I did start to confront with that. It's like, when I would do this myself, I'd always like, I don't know if it was a fraud or imposter syndrome that would come along. It's like, why you're doing this. I've done more journaling this week, every day, pretty much.
Well, just as you said something, it reminded me of something you said in the car, that this is maybe the first time, at least in this trip, you didn't feel the resistance. But for a long time, you may have.
That's very true.
Maybe you can speak more to what it's been like versus, seeing what's on the other side.
Well, new environment helps. Having a coach helps. Having a guide.
How do you feel towards the part of you that struggled to come up with something?
Yeah, really fine. Like I have it somewhere. Like what I'm trying to articulate, I know I felt, I wrote it down. It's something important, but it's not gone.
Right.
It's just not coming to the top of mind.
Right. This is perfect.
Yeah, there's a little bit of pressure with the cameras and the
Right.
mic. That's different, but that's okay. Like,
Right.
I don't really feel that judgmental about it, really.
Amazing. That I feel like is a bigger takeaway than anything you could have said.
Ooh.
To not have the profound
Mhm.
insight in the heat of the moment. My guess, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe older years past might have criticism towards himself, like, what the fuck, bro? Why didn't you have something profound to say on the middle of the podcast? You could have dropped and blown some minds. Versus being like, no, like, I got it written down. I know what I need for myself. And right now, what I have is what I have. And what I don't have is what I don't have. And to not feel judgment towards that part of you, bro, I honestly, to me, that's profound. To me, I'm like, dude, like, to not feel like I always have to have the answer, like, that helps me out. So thank you for being that model.
No, I agree. Like, that was something I had to face, a self-criticism. Like, chilling by the campfire, calling it a night. I had this great idea how to leave the keys so nothing happens. And what do? Just lock those keys right in the van at the end of the night.
First night, all
Yeah.
the food's in the van.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily, we took all of the supplies out to make the tents before we locked the keys because we didn't open it until the next day.
Yeah, we had everything we needed.
Right.
Even if we didn't, we did. But
Even if we didn't. We still had keys to one car. We could have gone home. But yeah, those keys were gone until the next morning.
And yeah, that self-criticism starting to blare in my head. And, I had some tools to address it and come to feel that anger, that you're disorganized, like you're just not paying attention. That one hit a little bit. But yeah, like then, and that it kind of bothered me through the night. But by the next morning, just realizing that voice was there was huge.
Yeah.
And then it lost a lot of its impact.
That, right? Like, once we recognize it and listen to it, it lessens. So often we're not trying to listen to it, we're trying to fix it. Which is like, I'm going to keep talking, bro. And it's like, oh, that's not how this game works.
Yeah, getting out of the mind, like like I'd usually try to think my way out of that, and it's just dog chasing its tail. But like just coming to terms with the feeling, that insight, I mean, I've kind of just said that before, but I'll say it again. Like, that is, if I get nothing else out of that insight from this trip was worth the price of admission.
Yeah, that's profound. Feel, observe, listen. As a bumper sticker
Hell yeah.
or a shirt or something,
Trademark, patent pending.
What do you think was some or one of the best gifts that Maui gave you?
Comfortably be outside 24/7 and in that space was huge. So, the climate, the energy, going in deep and serious, but then there's all this beauty and fun and play to have. And to have like both those right there with you is, I think, very helpful to me, because I love to play outside and like be silly, and like that helps me so much. And just knowing that, this hard, difficult, challenging place inside and this beautiful place outside. And there's something, there's just like a vibe or energy in this place that makes it easy to go inside. It's intangible, really.
I believe came with really good intentions, and she held you in that. Some people get served. Like, I knew a guy, his like car got broken into, and then it like caught on fire, and then he had to move off island. Like, and I don't know much about this dude, but like, man, Mama Maui was giving him some lessons, and like everybody's gets their turn and their burn and all, like it's just, she's got a really beautiful way of serving up love and lessons, and I feel like witnessing you over the past 8 days, you got a lot of them. You got a lot of them in such a beautiful, loving, and willingness to receive way. So kudos to you for.
I guess I do got a question for you.
Yeah.
This is the first time you've hosted anyone, or like a retreat-wise, on the island, I assume.
Yep.
How'd it go, like what you expected to, like what happened?
Yeah.
Like what really worked, or I don't know. I mean, what we might change or do different?
Yes, this is the first time I've hosted someone on the island in this form. I've had people visit, but this is totally different. I was super stoked that we got to camp. That was next level, and the fact for who you are as a human and not knew how you would receive that, like that was legend. I was really glad we did that. Things I would change is I would adjust it in a way where we were gone the whole time. We were out of the house the whole time, because then it breaks my routine as well. And it I think little things, right? Like you having a door where like it's, If it was a bedroom door, you would never question it being opened. But because it's the garage door and some people come out here and all that stuff, like, can you fully calm down and relax? Maybe, but maybe not. So I think I would have a different setup for just housing. I really appreciated that it wasn't a let's do as much big breath work as we possibly can to blow your brains out and change you. Like, we were very gentle, in my opinion, and I think it played to our benefit. Both my energy levels and your energy levels, like sleep compromised. You kind of got sick early on, like it just congested. But I think it was also, it built a lot of rapport. As I witnessed you, built a lot of rapport with your parts to being like, oh, he's not trying to like overtake us. That's cool. I liked the balance of the food we ate. I think we ate really clean and we indulged. You know, we allowed ourselves to go out to eat a couple times, and like that was great.
So you were saying about resistance and not just like bludgeoning people with like breath work.
Right.
That's one thing I noticed with like parts work is like, you know, the more you're forced, sometimes that force field just pushes back against you.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like if I resisted those mushrooms at that time, like I don't know what would have kind of like, it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't a bad trip, but I could feel like fighting that resistance would have been a bad trip.
It would have been very hard. And we were easily a mile into the wilderness. You know, like we had to hike back through.
I remember getting up and you're like, time, like, oh, bro, come on now.
Sorry,
like,
bro.
I'm just coming out of this. Like, like I got my wings under me, but like I just sort of.
I don't have my feet under me. I have my wings under
yeah.
me. Yeah, and to make that would probably be something
in the gorge up there.
That would be something I would do differently, is just, you know, being responsible for our safety and well-being. Like I probably would shift the timing or the location of if a medicine journey were to occur. Not that I thought we were in any danger. I just I did have some like judgment towards feeling like I could cut that short or needed us to leave.
Yeah, for me, it'd been another hour up there.
Right.
Would have been perfect.
Right. I think I might have told you, and you asked early on, like, what were my expectations or plan or whatever. And I wrote an itinerary. I looked at it last night because I had it on my computer still. And I wrote an itinerary, and it was pretty close. It was actually really close. Just slightly less breath work. But other than that, like, we were pretty spot on. And so that was cool to see.
That's good, because it didn't feel like one to me. Like, I didn't know. I'm glad you didn't show. Like, you kind of told me.
Yeah.
But I'm glad
I said I wasn't going to show you.
Yeah. Like, I'm glad you didn't you didn't write it down and send it to me. I'm like, all right, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. I'm good with that.
Right.
And so, like, to me, it you know, and you're the organizer, so it feels differently and it is differently for you. But for me, as a you know, kind of like passenger, like, felt very natural.
Yeah. Great. The only other thing I would change for myself, and I saw this coming, and I accepted it as a possibility and likelihood because I didn't prep myself, is could have planned differently, was pre-recording social media posts so that, I mean, we made one, which was dope. But I could have been able to keep my commitment to my daily posting that I didn't. And I'm okay with that. I would like to streamline my life a little more so I don't have to think about that. But other than that, it was delightful. I had a blast.
Me too, man.
Yeah, I'm so glad you got to see the things you saw, and up until the last moment, you know, like the take-home jewelry you got today from local artists. That thing is so beautiful, dude. Like, I'm stunned. Like, I'm just that
awesome.
Dude, you lucked out so hard with that thing. I think it's amazing, especially that inlay abalone. The guy literally was like, "That's a power shell." That's what he said. He's like, a power, like as in power. That's the power shell, you know, like. And that dude, like Maui's hook, like he raised Maui out of the ocean with it. Like, it's incredible. So yeah, dude, I'm so blessed. The day before you came here, I hiked deep into Iao and I set prayer intentions with those tea leaves. It was Leo's mom's birthday, so I did one for her, and I did one for you, and I did one for the mission that I'm on, you know, in the world. That's who I am, and I feel like we got all three.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Mission accomplished, at least for these first two.
It's really beautiful to be on the other end of it and to have the week we had, and I'm super grateful for you taking the time to come out here and to see me in my new habitat and experience again the medicine that I have to offer in the world. And
yeah, appreciate your invite, your love, your compassion, your ability to listen. Like, I'm realizing how big of a skill Like, cause I was trying to like, all right, I'm going to try to mirror what he was doing to me. And you're like, what did I just sound like?
That was great.
I can rephrase it, but like getting it exactly is kind of important.
It's very tough. And it's so important to me. Like, well, you said this. Because if it's slightly off, like, no, the ego's like, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
But if you get it right, they're like, fuck, I did say that. I did say that, blah,
That's
blah,
why it's
blah, blah.
important.
And yes, it is a skill. And I appreciate that acknowledgement because I've spent a lot of time honing it.
Awesome,
It's been
brother.
great, man. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Where do we go from here? I don't know. We'll see. Maybe another trip, maybe Colombia, maybe a whole nother thing. So thank you again, Nick, for being on the show and sharing your heart and your wisdom and your just profound willingness to meet life where it's at. I love it.
Awesome. It's great to do it with you, man.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening to this really special conversation. We'll see you soon. Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the interview today. And if you haven't already done so, please like or follow us on whatever platform you're listening to, and let us know if you have any questions or comments or requests of future interviewees.
And we hope you find this inspiration, the clarity, and the direction to fully lean into being human, whatever that means for you. Aloha.